anyone ever had their consent broken or had something they didn't like happen at any point in your life?
Yeah.
I mean, around the room, it's quite a lot of people, isn't it? And does shit happen? I had somebody write to me on FetLife and said, I'm really in a bad place. My dominant male partner raped me, was the message. And I was like, fuck, I'm so sorry, are you okay, and whatever. And then she proceeded to tell me everything, which, by the way, I didn't ask for. It was way too much information. I'm not a therapist, I'm a stranger, I'm just somebody on the internet. But what I read was really, really sad. It wasn't rape, it wasn't an assault, it was a clusterfuck. They had a rule between them that said, if I go into a little's place, let's not have sex. That was their rule. And sometimes she flipped into quite a little space where she felt very young and vulnerable. They were doing quite a heavy scene, they were having a good time, very adult between them. He's fucking the hell out of her and flogging her and God knows what else. I don't know what else happened. That wasn't in the email. But what was interesting was what happened was then she said, I need to go to the loo quickly. He went, go, leave the door open, let me watch you piss. I hadn't done that before, actually. And as she wiped herself and he was watching intently, she went, whoa, little. Just boom, out of nowhere. She got up, she went back. Her opinion is he should have seen that she'd gone into a little space. Maybe he should. Maybe we look at galvanic skin responses. Maybe we look at the way we walk. Maybe we look at body language. Maybe we look at tone or anything else as well. However, if she can't say that and she can't protect herself, I'm really worried about her. And it's not about blame. I can only imagine how he felt finding out that she was in a little space and they carried on. I bet he felt like shit. I know she felt like shit. And what you've got here is a clusterfuck, not a violation of consent, because nobody knew. So these things happen, and they happen often. That's one of thousands of emails that I get regularly. It's not all negative, by the way. It's really good as well. I just want to say that. Who has a...
Are there any ways you'd recommend finding a therapist who's queer-friendly, kink-friendly, and neurodivergent-friendly?
Oh, right. The last one is the most complex. He is. He is. I am. So you can look at things like the Pink Register. So the Pink Register will probably have most of your GSDR, gender, sex sort of stuff. You can go to places like COSRT, COSRT, which is one of the governing bodies around sex and relationships. Do I think they're brilliant? No. Am I on them? Absolutely not. Ask around, go by word of mouth.
That's what I mean. Is there an association? It's like a friendly association where you only let people in who you know.
There's no friendly association. All these associations are done by whether you pay the fee or not.
It's not a protected thing, is it?
No, it's not. So if I want, so my supervisor runs the Pink Register. He runs the whole Pink therapy group. Like, it's a big deal. I'm not even registered with the Pink group or on the list. A lot of us aren't, because you end up having to pay like £100 or £150 for all these organisations that you might join. What benefit do they give me? I'm full a lot of the time. I see 2 people for free, I see 2 people for cheaper, and I give away workshops for free. By the way, is anyone a counsellor or a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist? Write to me afterwards, I'll give you a free CPD certificate. Just let me know, because they're worth like 60 to 100 quid, like for a session. They're worth more than that now. But and I also run a free Zoom on a Thursday night once a month. And again, I offer free CPD for that, but it's like this, it's a Q&A or it's a specific subject like jealousy or non-monogamy or whatever it is. So they are also there for free CPD as well. So are you on FetLife?
Yeah. I just said I'll send them your details.
Brilliant. Just send me a DM. I need your real name and your real email. That's the only thing. So there has to be trust, and I'll send it to you. But finding someone is really hard, because actually, especially with neurodivergence, I'm always going to want more of a neurodivergent therapist in that scenario. There's more of a connection and understanding that has more clarity. But I want someone with a different level of experience. So a lot of the registers that we're on aren't protected or anything else as well. So I'd go by word of mouth. I would find someone you like in some way. You could start on the Pink Register. It's not a bad place to be. As I say, though, a fair amount of us aren't on it, but the people that are on it may be great. Maybe. I wish that I could tell you that there is this register where everyone is brilliant.
Because sometimes there's a small organisation.
Yeah, I wish there was. There are. So people are trying to bring up organisations. I connected with a woman recently, she's trying to do it in America, of she's registering kinky people who are also therapists and different things as well. And she's also accrediting them. They have to take some exams with her. And I said, okay, so hang on a second. I'm curious about what you're doing, but how are you accrediting these people to deal with us? Why are you the accreditation panel? Like, what are your qualifications? What do you know? And she's a certified sexologist from what I can see, but I can't see anything else about trauma, about anything else at all. And I'm like, or about relationships or psychosexual, because I think they're the things that we all need to study in order to deal with us. And I'm like, and we have a high percentage of neurodivergence as well. So I'm like, okay, I'm just curious, why are you allowed to certify? Like, what gives you, who are you? And she hasn't written to me back. It's been 10 days. Clearly not happy with me. But I am actually in the process with Pink Therapy of writing a set of courses and exams to further qualify people so that therapists can do that. And it's very nice because he's got his basic course. He wants me to write an advanced course, which I will do, and some little things that people can pick up. So that I'll do it in my spare time. What spare time? I don't have spare time. So things will be coming to help out a little bit, but I run this workshop, right, Clear on Consent and Kink. I love the name, it's a cock workshop. I'm seeing someone at the moment who broke someone's consent because he was asked by 2 organisers to come and see me. One of the organisers has said to him, when Deb says that you are clear to practice kink, you can go and practice. I went, that is never going to happen. I'm not putting my name with what someone presents to me for 50 minutes a week to say this person is safe. If you ask me about ex-partners and stuff, they were safe with me, maybe. I don't know if they're safe with you. Some relationships create a lot of toxicity between 2 people. And when those people leave, they're really good in other relationships. Have you seen that? I've certainly seen that before. Like, it's really fucked up. But then with the other person, they're not. And other times, it's abuse and it's down to one person, 100%. And I'll call it as I see it, but I ain't giving someone a fucking tick to say they're safe, ever. Because David says, oh, let someone take your picture in front of that with you. I'm like, yes, of course. But in my profile, it still says, don't fucking ask me to say that you're safe, because I won't. And it's a big deal. Who's got a different question?
Oh, yeah.
I'll come back to you.
So you said when it comes to like organisers and stuff, you know, you're always going to give a healthy level of like skepticism, and you said that people have lied to you to like get something out of you. And there's obviously that there can be like people who like wear wolves in sheep's clothing. What sort of red flags do you have? Like, can you like pick up on them to like sort of discern that if they're not coming on like true intentions, and also not like for ask like poor or like horror stories, but like what like some of the things that can happen if you don't vet these people properly?
I do think you should look people up. There are opportunities for you to look people up. I have a whole vetting procedure. I'm certainly going to check out their email address. I'm going to reverse search images if I've never met them before. You'd be surprised how many people steal a picture and it's a model from someone and you think, fucking ignorant is that? But thank you very much for showing me who you are. Okay, and I think we've got a problem straight away. What colour is a love heart?
Red.
Red. What colour is love? Red. What colour is lust? Red. They're all red. How the fuck are you supposed to see red flags when you are seeing just red? I think what you've got to look for are green flags. I think we've got to turn it around. People tell you who they are. And it is, look at how they treat other people, look at it, and ask, do they have references? Do they have something that they can tell us or do? Would somebody else say, so far they've been a really nice person? It's never going to be they're wonderful or perfect. It's just that basic thing. So certainly we can ask for that. How long have you been on the scene? Who knows you? There are people who hate me. They're not going to say nice things about me. That's okay. But if the majority are all right with you, that's quite good. But I would look for how they treat other people. How do they communicate? Do they answer questions? How many of you have sent WhatsApps to people and people just ignore your fucking question? Have you had that?
Yeah.
I certainly have. Like so many times, and you're like, should I just ignore that question? Or the little things that just churn your stomach that make you feel a little more uncomfortable. Those are your indicators. But if your stomach is churning because you really, really want to have sex with them, really hard to see. If your heart is fluttering, really hard to see those internal things. It's really difficult. So I think we need to look more for green. I think we do need to do some vetting. I was stalked by somebody off FetLife, and it was absolutely, I'll come back to your point, it was fucking horrific. The police were involved and everything, and he was known under Clare's Law, which means he was very guilty of domestic violence as well. So you can look things up. You can look up Clare's Law, you can look up a few laws to find out if this person is, let's face it, could just mean they haven't been caught yet as well. I don't understand why I need an advanced DBS every year to work with children. By the way, I don't as a therapist. I don't need a DBS to see a child in my room alone. I find that quite shocking. But also, what is a DBS? It just checks whether you've been prosecuted or not, that's all. It just means you haven't been caught. So I think it's very much about green flags. Do some research on the person. Ask them, why aren't you on the scene? Why aren't you in this? And some people don't want to be on the scene, and that's all right. But also go with your gut feel, but that's really hard. You can't see red through red. Does that make sense to people? Because I say it all the time when people go, God, that makes so much sense. You can't see red through red, but green is a different colour. Comes up as a different colour. It's much better for you to look for people.
Oh, what sort of questions would you ask to like at first like sort of see if that they're green flags like?
So it's all about how they treat people around you, the servers and everyone else as well. One question I will always ask someone, who here has got over 6 months of experience of play? Right, so my question will be, what have you done when a scene's gone wrong? And if they say to me, a scene's never gone wrong, I'm like, that's a flag for me.
Talk about it.
Sorry?
Talk to each other about it.
Yeah, it's all about just sitting in conversation. If all they talk about is sex, if all they talk about is sex and play, that is not for me. If they're not interested in what I've done today and not treating me as a human being first, if they're telling me that I should wear certain things straight away, can you come in a silk shirt, please? Do you want me or do you want the silk shirt? I think you want the silk shirt. So for me, it's about looking for green flags, and that's about communication. But I will always ask that question, what's gone wrong for you? What ended your last relationship? I promise I'll come back. What ended your last relationship? And if anyone says my ex is a psycho or a narcissist, that's a red flag. It is. Because I'll tell you now, your ex isn't a psycho or a narcissist. Well, not defined anyway. We all go a bit psycho and narcissistic when we're finishing something, and we can be a bit horrible to each other. What I want is somebody to say, this was my part in it. It was really difficult. I found them really complex.
Yeah.
This was my part, and I think I didn't do this right. I'm learning from that, or I'm going to therapy, or I'm sort of like trying to find out who I am, or I talk to a lot of people about these things. Self-reflection is a really good thing. If the person shows accountability, love that. I don't want to hear that you are, I am such a good person, I'm really nice, whatever. If someone's overselling to me, it's like, I own a plane. Good for you. Have you thought about the world? You know, I don't know. So we're looking for something. Has anyone got anything they want to add to that? What would you ask for?
I just understand, because you told me off for being too quiet last time. What I found is referrals. My best kink partner right now, all men who are referred to me by other friends. You might meet so-and-so, you and he could get on. And we now have a network of friends. We find ourselves agreeable out of scene. We like sitting down over a cup of tea or something and just talking about shit.
Yeah.
Not what we've just done. Now I'm in my 70s, so maybe I'm not that good as some. All these guys are in their 60s plus, so maybe we're of a different ilk. But
Yeah.
that's what I found works. And it used to work when I was in my 30s as well. So that's all I can say. It's hard. You have to find people you trust, whose judgment you trust.
And that depends if you want that referral just to be a play session or a sex session with somebody, and that you have that sort of community, whereas I'm looking more for a long-term partner, which I won't probably have a referral from, maybe. But in the scene, there are groups that, you know, you've got like quite big poly groups where everyone is with people and they have a really good time, and inviting someone into that can be a lot of fun. So there are a group of people that already trust this person. But also, don't go fucking and playing with the first date. If you want to, go and do it. Have a fucking awesome time. And as a really old fucking past it woman, people show you who they are fairly quickly if you give them the opportunity. And you just need to believe it. But you can't see it through that lust, through that love. And if the first thing you do is play, unless you've got referral systems and trust and different things in place, if the first thing you do is like, wah-hey, like your wah-hey just takes you somewhere else in your head. We make some fucking stupid decisions when we're turned on. And I'm a big believer, like when you're turned on, if you're about to come or, you know, like you're sucking someone's dick or you're doing something like, I'm having a really good time here. Yeah, that's fine, do that. That's the wrong time to say that sort of shit. Because we make decisions we regret and we make unsafe decisions. Yeah, it's fine if you fuck me without the condom on and come inside me and I'm due on my period in 2 weeks and I'm 24. That's a really bad idea. Like, you know, and let alone with STIs and other things, like, fucking hell, like, we just have to learn to sometimes just not go so fast. But that said, if you want to go and have a gangbang with 300 people and have a good time, totally approve and have a great time. Just make sure you want to do it and you're safe. You were going to add to that?
I'm going to say the difference between depends how you meet people, whether you go and do it in real life or online. They're two very different animals.
Online is very good to manipulate someone. We can take time before we write a message. We can think about the message we're writing. It's not instant. I want to talk to someone. Because when I talk to someone, I learn a lot more about them. Whereas online, it's easy to say the right thing, even if they're going, hang on. I'm just going to ask AI, because ChatGTP will take everything over, won't it? And all of a sudden you're writing these right answers, and they look good. ChatGTP, it's interesting, could it do my job? It will give you tools, but it cannot do my job, because it's about a human connection. So it will never take over my job, thank fuck. It's just different. But will it give you good tools? Yes, which means it will give you good tools to manipulate people as well. So it takes time. Meeting someone and having a conversation is really important. There were two people. You had your hand up first.
So it's a thing that I've seen people talk about lately, but it's mostly in like weirdly enough, like vanilla places posting it. Like there's this whole theory that kinks are hereditary. Do you think there's any truth to that, or do you think it's more environmental, or do you think the whole thing is just chicken or the egg arguments that we're never going to get an answer?
Well, it's a little bit like neurodivergence, isn't it? Like if you listen to Gabor Mate, he'll tell you it's from trauma. I will tell you it isn't. If I look at all the research, there's a 0.89 heritability. So if these things, if we're learning all these things are inheritable, I think there's a real possibility that kink is inheritable. And this research is starting to look at it. Tashra have started to look at it, but Tashra have had their own implosion last week. One of their main researchers has just had to come out as a white supremacist. So he's gone. And his research was fucking brilliant. And I hope his research is not now discounted, because that's the man. Like, I don't want to like him, but his research is still valuable, sadly. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near Mengele, especially as a queer Jewish woman by heritage. It's interesting, like even Judaism, like religion and other things, when we have a lot of cultural influence from our history, epigenetics are about someone's experience. So Rachel Yehuda did a lot of research on this, really interesting woman, when she was working with survivors of the Holocaust. What she saw was that these people were highly stressed. I don't think I'll be very normal after having survived the Holocaust. They didn't want to get on trains. Wonder why. They didn't like people in uniform. I'm self-explanatory. And they carried a lot of food in their bags. And they would often put on weight. No surprise. We only found out that if you overfeed humans with anorexia, they die because of the Holocaust. When they rescued people, when they tried to give them lots of bread and to make sure that they were okay, we discovered something called overfeeding syndrome. So when somebody's anorexic, don't give them a lot of food. You start on gentle things like milk and different things, so you reintroduce food. It's dangerous. So thank you, Hitler, you taught us something. You know, there's a little bit of good in everything. Not. But it's an interesting thing, isn't it? That there is a lot of research now going into what goes down generations. It's like you can have a black couple having a white baby, and his immediate response is going to be, who the hell did you fuck? But 14 generations ago, there was a white person in their mix sexually. You can have twins that are born different colours. You can have, they shouldn't be born with these eyes and all these different things. We've got recessive genes. None of my daughters should have been born with blue eyes. They all should have been born with brown eyes, because my mum's got brown eyes, my dad's got green eyes, my grandmother had blue eyes. It's really unusual for me to have 4 blue-eyed daughters. So the argument is that, yes, it probably is inherited. However, environment does have a lot to do with it as well, positive and negative. So like if you're a kinkster who's malicious and really horrible, and you're not really a kinkster, you're just a malicious, murdering twat, your environment will have had a lot to do with that. But there's every possibility that your brain has a predisposition. There was a professor quite a while ago, certainly in my lifetime, who used to teach that being a serial killer was made, not born. And he did a lot of university lecturers, and anyone who's doing a degree studying it, he would show you the fMRI scan of a serial killer, and you look at some of the patterns in the brain. They're really interesting. And at the same time, a lot of his family were having real problems with Alzheimer's. Was it Alzheimer's or something like that? It was Alzheimer's, thanks. And one of the days that he was looking at his family's tests, unfortunately, he dropped them and they went into all the stuff that he was taking to uni the next day. So what he did when he was at university the next day, he said, so look at this brain, this is a serial killer, and these are the reasons why. It was his own fucking scan. And that's really like, God, that's like some fuck knows, isn't it? Because you're going to have a look at all the scans and find out about it. It even makes my skin go, ugh. It was his own scan. He had to change his whole philosophy on it. And when he looked at himself, he knew that he was quite cold. He knew that he was quite logical. He knew he had certain approaches, and he didn't maybe feel as much as other people did in some way. He was very aware. But he go on.
Elaborate. His own mother at a barbecue after that quote him aside and
Yeah.
said, by the way, dear son, do you know that in our family tree we had a serial murder?
Yeah.
Lizzie Borden. She's a distant relative of ours.
Yeah.
His own mother confirmed he wasn't quite that neurotypical, and now it made sense to her why he was so aggressive suddenly and impulsive and wanted to go to a party on the same day after the funeral of his father, which he thought wasn't.
He thought it was normal, thought it was fine. University lecture is all good. And that's mad, isn't it? So we're finding out these things. We're yet to have the actual proof of that fully, but overall they're right. But what are your feelings about that? Does that upset you? Do you think it is environment? What are your...
I just assumed it was a mixture of both. I guess if you make the serial killer comparison.
Yep.
Because that, I mean, to choose like that's a conversation that comes up a lot. I'm like, yeah, it's like a mixture of both. It was also just something I was generally interested in. So I remember my friends telling me that they had a conversation with their parents about kinks being hereditary. So I was just like, oh, it was nice to hear. Something like I said, a lot of non-kink publications are talking about this. I wasn't sure if it was just stuff made up the headline.
There is some truth in it by the looks of things. I do think environment has something to do with it. He was brought up in a good enough environment for him not to have switched or turned. But when you look at the history of people who are extreme, like extreme paedophilia or serial killers, they have so much trauma in their life. Now, is kink a response to trauma? Who the fuck knows? It's quite interesting. But I do know if we replay trauma, a lot of people say that's really positive, we do it in a powerful way. It can also go really wrong. It is not the best thing to do. Just the slightest whisper off. At least have the proper therapy alongside that with the trauma. If you're going to replay things like a rape or something, you replay, could be good, could be great. Fuck me, it can go wrong as well. Person gets something slightly wrong, misses it, or and it takes a lot of communication, that one. So, and we also have something called repetition compulsion when we are traumatized. We have repetition compulsion in our lives anyway. When something doesn't go quite right, we want to do it again to try and make sure we get a different outcome. But we do exactly the same. Not going to happen. That doesn't work. So we get this compulsion to repeat things, especially if they're negative. We do them again and again and again and again. Like, so I can change my history. It won't work. We need to change us and the way we respond to these things. But there is quite a lot of proof coming out that, yes, it probably is. That's why I want to do the transgenerational epigenetic scripting of sexually submissive women as my PhD. Even when I look back at my own great-grandmother, you know, I think she had 5 husbands. They all died. I don't know how. Apparently, very natural causes. But she was this tiny little woman. I've got this photo of her, my grandmother, my mum, and my sister and I. Like, it's amazing, like 4 generations of women. But she was this strong little thing. Fuck me. Like, even the social services, because she was Swiss, so I'm not very English at all, but I have dual nationality. And actually, my father's grandparents were Russian and Polish, escaping pogroms. So I ain't very British or English, although I sound terribly British. I'm not. So it's a really interesting impact watching, hearing the stories about her. Apparently, she sexually harassed the male nurses in her old people's home. They had to remove her. She would pinch bottoms and grab bottoms. She was very gone, but she was quite aggressive, so they just put her with women, and she didn't do that to women. But she also bodily threw out what was social services at the time, when people came saying, you can't keep your children, you're a woman by yourself. It's a very, very, very long time ago. She would bodily throw these men out, this tiny little thing. So I don't know, is that strength? What is it? And then, you know, I hear a story about my mother being sexually assaulted by an uncle, and being sent into an institution for 3 months because she tried to say that he did it. Things like that, it's just really interesting. So there is something about history when you truly look back, but a lot of your family stories don't come down to you when they're negative. They come down to you when they're positive, whereas when we look at different cultures, telling of stories is so important to say who you are, and finding those things out really matters as well. It does. You had your hand up.
Back to the whole rope life, green life thing. When you look at green life, is there a way to sort of tell if they're actually green or are they just performative?
Time. It's just time. A stressful situation, somebody who's performative will break. And we all have stressful situations, but it's only time. And it is about your guts. There's no perfect way to figure out people. However, you can look at things like micro-expressions. A little bit of study can help you with that. You can tell when someone's lying or sad, certainly deceptive. They do give indicators in their eyes, in the way that they communicate and the things that they do. It takes some study though, although some people are quite natural at picking up on other people's stuff. If you've had trauma in your life in any way, shape or form, you are likely or possibly fairly empathic, potentially. I remember one of my third eldest daughter's friends, Kaylin, she came to me a few years ago and she said to me, "I'm just a born empath, Debs." And I went, "Yeah, I can really see that from your alcoholic mother and all the shit you went through." And she went, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, it's trauma." She went, "Oh, it's not, shut up." And now she's studied EFT, emotional freedom tapping, and things as well. And we were talking about it, she went, "Yeah, you were right." So when we've got, it's that knowing what somebody else is about sometimes, that instinct. You can call it witchy, you can call it whatever you like, but it is there, and it is there. I'll come back to you, I promise. And it's important to understand that these things are there. If it's performative and someone's really good at it, I don't care who you are, you can't tell always. I've certainly been tricked by people, and I think I'm pretty good at reading people, but not all the time. I've certainly been deceived and had lies and had tricks. Like even marriage, because I think also it's not just about performative, it's when people really mean it at the time. When I got married, my husband, and he's my ex-husband, said he would die for me, would take a bullet for me. And I did my speech in a couple of different languages because I've got family from everywhere. I'm a bit of a polyglot and I love language. And we were just talking, and there was so much emotion, it was so beautiful. And you move on to 6 years later when I'm having our fourth daughter and he's fucking his secretary and has been for a year. And I think he did mean it when he said it. I don't think he meant it anymore when he was coming second to children and everything else as well. And it's not that it's good or bad, it just was. You were going to say?
Yeah, I would be interested to know your thoughts on how neurodivergence plays into reading people, whether the person is neurodivergent or you are yourself.
Look at who you get on with. That really matters. Look at who you're drawn to. So can neurodivergence spot other neurodivergence? Yes, it's like a sixth sense. If you tell a neurotypical, "Oh, I've just been diagnosed," they go, "Oh my God, really, have you?" And if you tell a neurodivergent friend, they go, "Yeah, I knew all along." And you can tell fairly quickly. What does that mean? Look, you can have been through trauma because you're neurodivergent, but trauma with a small t, not always with a big T, right? So it could have varied. If you're brought up by other, if we talk about heritability and neurodivergence, your parents or one of them is neurodivergent in some way, which means they struggle in some way socially, or they mask really well, or did something in some way. They may not see it themselves even. But then the way you bring up your child is already different compared to neurotypicals. So that in itself has an impact. It's not good, it's not bad, it has an impact. And then if you've got that neurodivergent child who then maybe struggles socially and goes into school, fuck me, that's not an easy thing to master. It might be that they threw themselves into work. It might be if they're more on the spectrum that they were like really good at maths and working things out and more sciences. If they're ADHD, they're probably really good at chatting to people, don't really make friends. Their reports will say, never stopped talking, couldn't shut them up, didn't focus properly. It's in most of our reports. It looked like we were popular or friendly, or it looked like we weren't. We can do both, that's the problem. And also, when you look at, they were exceptionally tidy or they're exceptionally messy, the extremes are actually often there. If you come into my house, it's a show home. My house is beautifully put together. I like it that way because I also know I'm diagnosed with both. I know if I start chaos, that's it. I'm going to live in a shithole. So I keep it clean and tidy, and I like to know where I'm going, what I'm doing. And that's my autistic side of control and patterns of me feeling okay. It's like an infinity loop. If you think you are, or you have suspicions, it's quite likely. You know, because we already maybe don't fit in. I would go and talk to a neurodivergent person that you really know is and say, what do you think of me? What do you think I am? Look, there's a lot of referrals for ADHD and autism now, and I would argue that the NHS aren't giving them easily. You have to be quite extreme. If you're here, you can't be a little bit pregnant, by the way, can you? Right? You're either pregnant or you're not. So ADHD and autism, you're not, oh, I'm slightly autistic. No, you're fucking not. You're autistic or you are not. You've got ADHD or you have not. You might be here on the scale, or you might have learnt to mask brilliantly. I was born in 65. You learnt to mask everything on a high level. And actually, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we unmask way too much sometimes. Like Mrs. Smith, who lives next door to me, pruning her roses, if she says, how are you, Deb? It shouldn't be that I turn around and say, I'm a little bit tired because I got my cunt fisted last night. Fucking inappropriate. I don't know what's okay for her or not. We have to learn to shut up sometimes and not overshare. So masking can be really good to get you through things and to help you. We see masking as really negative nowadays. It is not. If we mask too much, it is negative. We need somewhere where we can be ourselves, but not be a cunt either. What I'm seeing a lot of parents doing at the moment is my child can't help it, they've got ADHD or they've got autism. Oh, you're going to have an argument with me now. You're not helping your child. You are not. We all need to learn some boundaries, but we need to do it in a loving, kind way that really nurtures that child, rather than just say it's okay for you to be a cunt, because life will teach you that it is not. You end up being held on the ground really badly by me because you just punch your mum in the head. But I wish I'd got to them when she was 3 or 4. It's much harder work now, but it's never too late. And mum is really learning. When I work with neurodivergent families, I don't do therapy on a child. A neurodivergent child should not have therapy. I'm telling you now. Therapy will not work for a neurodivergent child. What the family needs is coaching. How do I interact with my child? How do I enable them? How do I foster this culture so that the child can grow and be brilliant? Because really at the same time, you're probably diagnosing the fucking parents and helping them as well. The child doesn't need to talk about their feelings. Sometimes they don't even know what their feelings are, especially if we're more autistic. Well, what is that? I don't know. The algorithm hasn't updated. We're different. And the American Psychological Association is really adamant about this. Let's not give children with ADHD or autism personal therapy. You can give them personal coaching. It's just slightly different. It's slightly more led. And that's where you're really teaching them about their condition, about their brain, about how they work. And feelings do come into that, but it's part of teaching them about their lives. There's a beautiful set of books. God, what's her name? I can't remember. I'd have to post it somewhere. I just bought them. They're meant for kids. And it's written by a primary school teacher. And it's just about mental health. And she says, my brain is a home. And she talks about the amygdala and a guard dog, which is what I always do, like a Rottweiler. And she's got bloody Rottweiler. I'm going, oh my God, have we communicated at some point? We haven't. It's a beautiful book about first aid for your brain, everything else as well. That's how we need to approach. Not liberal parenting, slightly gentle, not too gentle, but not coercive and draconian either. But your friends, if you've got neuro, especially if they are diagnosed, they'll probably tell you. Have they?
Yeah, it's helpful, thank you. I was thinking more about specifically with the green flags, so...
Yeah, that's fair. I haven't answered that. That's a really complex one because when we get something in our mind, if we have ADHD, we think we're right and that's it. So our focus changes and we focus on one thing often. So actually what we probably need is a few friends to meet somebody and tell us and help us as well. But we also need to know ourselves. So when you know yourself really well, you can actually turn around, especially if you're ADHD or you go, yeah, I do that sometimes. And let's go a bit slower because I'm like, I'm jumping on you. No, I said I was going to go slow. I've got time, how do I do that? And it's one of the questions I always ask myself, and I do ask myself this, especially if I'm meeting someone to date. I'm getting all these pulls which play with my head. If my head wasn't in the way, what else would I be thinking? Or I'm getting all these pulls that are from my cunt or my stomach that just go, have this person. If I just slow down, if they weren't there, what am I thinking? And is this like an ADHD pull of, oh, you've got to have, and that's passion and focus, and it's everything else. We tend to take more risks, especially sexually, because we're just in a moment and it's a load of fun, but we also have a lot of regrets afterwards, and there is some shame sometimes around that. So sometimes just going slow can help. And it is asking, if my cunt or my cock wasn't thinking like this, what would my head be saying? And actually, I feel really pulled into this, which I know is a danger and a red flag for me about me. So if I'm pulled into it, that's when I'm also going to try and say, it doesn't always work, try and say, just slow down and see tomorrow. And go to the next morning. And then even say to a friend, do you think that's a good conversation? And they say, fucking hell, they said that. And you, what, is that bad then? Or, that's an interesting thing. Just to ask people. And if you have a therapist, ask them. Well, it depends. I'll always tell you what I think, but a lot of therapists don't. They just nod and go, okay. And I'm like, fucking hell, we're not going to see that. But what the fuck have they said? Or whatever. I'm a little bit different like that. Or I say, well, that's brilliant. That person's really listening to you and that looks pretty good. But that's just what they're presenting in a written form. So it is definitely harder. I would say that especially ADHD is going to get in the way of green flags. Autism, less so. More logical, more clear, more structured, more focused, more analytical. But I'm going to argue, this probably isn't popular at all, that most of us have a slight aspect of both. It's the same root. It comes up slightly differently. But I would argue sometimes that my autistic side really fucks up my ADHD side, but it also really rescues it sometimes. And it can help. So we've got aspects. So we can, it's not a superpower. Can we please stop saying that? There are aspects of it that are fantastic, and it can be limiting as well, but it can be bloody beautiful. It's just you've got to understand yourself first and how you respond to those things. Because ADHD is a little bit like putting glasses on that mean you don't quite see the red. It becomes a bit orange. So I would just go slow and say, if my heart, my cunt, my cock wasn't in the way, what's my head really saying? I would report some of those conversations, knowing that they are an opinion, back to a friend and say, what would you have said to this? What do you think about this? That's what I would do. I don't know if that helps at all. We've got time for one last question. Look, if you're hot and you're bothered in here and you don't like what I'm saying, look, you don't have to worry about leaving. People leave, you can leave as well. And we can finish. I've just taken no offence at it because everyone's got shit going on in their own heads in their own way and things they want to do here. We have got time for one more question if anybody wants to ask one. Anyone's got anything going on?
One more question.
Go on.
At the start of your introduction, you talked about consent, and you spoke about children, how we teach consent, and how that's forming up from an early age. What's wrong with it at the moment?
Because it says, do not touch me here and do not touch me here, but then we say to a child, no, but that person has to touch you there, and this person can touch you there, and I can touch you there. It's so contradictory. I think what we've got to teach is that sometimes, like, when I work with kids, like, I was away with this group of 40 kids. We were in Disney for half a day. One girl came on. She flooded everywhere, through her shorts, through everything. She was brave enough to come and tell me. It took me 2.5 hours and $100 to buy her a new pair of shorts, some towels, because she doesn't have Tampax, and some new knickers. And sometimes I'm in situations like that where it might involve someone changing or doing something with me and in front of me. And I hope that I always ask and I'm very clear about what I do. And it is important. I had a little girl come into the office the other day. She was 4 at the time. And we bought her one of these gorgeous uniforms. And she came in, she was going to try it on. And Andy brought her in, who is my daughter's partner. And she looked funnily at him. And he said, oh, do you not want me in here? And she said, no. And he totally respected it and he left. I get that. But she said to me, can you help me, Debbie? They call me Debbie. I hate Debbie, but that's what they call me at the gym because my daughter started that because she knows it gets on my nerves. I'm not consenting to that shit. But what I've got is a little girl in front of me. Why am I safer than him? Just because I'm a woman? Look, statistically, I'm less likely to hurt her. But it's an interesting, immediate assumption that I'm safe. And she really needed to take, she's only 4, she needs to take all of her stuff off. We're also teaching quite a lot of body shaming around all of this. It's no, you can't see any part of me. Like when you're giving birth, you've got at least 20 people coming to a room and having a good look up there and seeing what's going on. You've got a lot of things happening. It's contradictory. I think we need to teach that there are people that do touch, do look and do see things, like doctors, like other people. It's about, though, the words that they use and if they make you feel uncomfortable. And the words that they will use will be how special you are, that this is a really special time, that this is a secret time, and that if you tell somebody, someone's going to get hurt or something bad is going to happen. That's what we should be teaching our children, the words to listen out for. Or the fact that they buy us a load of extra presents and it's really nice, but they kind of want something for it. Whereas if we're teaching, you have an absolute right to consent, and then they need surgery that touches them, or we need to touch them, or we need to have a look. Maybe they're sore. Maybe we need to have a good look. We pull their vulva open because they're sore as fuck. And they've got a thrush as a baby, or they've got, how far are we going to go? We've also got people saying you need to ask a baby consent to change its nappy. I'm not going to do that, because I know if my child sits in piss or shit, they're going to get an infection. One of my daughters was born dying. She had 5 loads of major surgery in her first year, and she got kidney infections all the fucking time because she had a grade 5 reflux and a duplex kidney on the left and a grade 4 on the right. She forever had people looking inside her and doing things. But again, even around consent, when they took her blood, they were so bad at it. Babies are notoriously bad to get blood from. I would come in and say, get a decent person, you've got 3 chances. Because I didn't want my child being a pinprick cushion every time. For me, that's about consent. I don't know if I'm making sense to you, if you can see what I'm saying. I think we're getting it wrong because we're teaching it as a blanket statement and a blanket thing. Whereas actually, often that predator is somebody who's going to come along and make sure that they're your best friend. And they're going to be really nice to you, and they're going to buy you things, or they're going to tell you beautiful things. And then they're going to start to touch you in a way that you're okay with. So your consent dissolves in your head anyway, because it's okay. And that's the danger, it's the manipulation. We need to teach about that more, not to scare children. We need to start really basic as they're growing up. But we're really frightened to talk to our kids about sex and drugs and rock and roll. We think it goes too fast, but actually education isn't a bad thing at all. But you can educate a child all you like. The reason this 14-year-old had a massive argument with her mum and was in my room the other day is because she sent a nude picture to a 17-year-old boy the night before that she's never met before in her life. And her mum went mad about it because she's scared. And there's a naked picture of a 14-year-old girl. He immediately blocked her. Immediately, I think he saw that she had quite a young 14-year-old body, so immediately blocked her. But it's interesting, what really comes up for that child? Did he block her because her body wasn't good enough? Did he block her because he didn't want her? Or did he block her because he saw that she was 14? She's not going to have the logic to think of those things. So if we teach our kids about discomfort, lying, manipulation, and something goes slightly wrong, you can even have doctors and nurses go into schools and get them to strip to their vests and knickers if they weigh them or something. It's about the discomfort of that. Do you want to do that? Is that okay with you? Because actually, you don't have to be weighed at school. It's none of their business. It's all about a little bit of rights and education as well. But I think it's a bit more complex than the here and here. I don't know, do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts and feelings on it? I think it's a complex one. But if you're my youngest daughter, I think she's had thousands of people look up her bum. She was born with something called imperforate anus. They cut her from her vaginal opening all the way down past her anus. The surgery takes 5 hours to do this surgery, and she's this tiny baby. And then they shock all the way through to get all the muscles, takes hours. And then they get to the bowel, which hasn't opened up. So she was dying from meconium being in her system. They put a hole in the bowel, bleed it all out to make sure none of it goes into her system. They then pull her bowel through like a piece of elastic and stitch it around it. And as they stitch it around, it gets smaller and smaller, where it gets to what is an anus. And then they fold it back in and they create an anus. But she looked like she had one from the outside. Every midwife said, no, she's fine, have a little look. And every midwife after that said, well, I'm not supposed to use rectal thermometers, but I fucking will do again now. Because if you'd have gone a centimetre in, you'd have realised it was blocked. There's a 1 in 4,600 chance of any baby being born with that. You're more likely to have intersex or something else as well. So it's really unusual, but you can die from it. So when they did that, they then put an emergency colostomy bag in. She was touched all the time by so many doctors and nurses. And she was so uncomfortable when we went to a hospital. She was in for 8 months. And then when we came out, she had to go every week. She had 4 different specialists, kidney specialists, imperforate anus specialist, eye specialist, because we've got genetics of when things all happen in the womb at the same time, and all these different things, and kidneys as well. And people were forever looking at her. And she didn't like it, and it was uncomfortable, so you have to teach it slightly differently then. So I also then took her to hospital twice a week, and on the other time we went to the gift shop, we bought a toy, we had some lunch, we had a nice time. Just to balance it out. But then trying to teach her that these people do end up looking, and I'm really sorry, I know it's uncomfortable, but what I can do is protect her from the students or the extras coming in. It's just that one person. Or if you're uncomfortable, you need to say. So for me, it's about teaching discomfort, about manipulation more, which takes a little bit more time and attention. But your paedophile will not come straight in and make it. They won't. They will gain trust. And you gain trust if you've got a child. That's what you do. So you do touch and you can. That's what a paedophile does. They gain your trust, then they gain your child's trust. 64% of the time, it's a family member, it's someone you know, it's someone you trust, a teacher, somebody, your gym teacher, anyone. It's those people.
And abuses in the church. There was
Church, yeah.
a field of trust that
Yeah.
was able to be abused in the first place.
If you look at the amount of boys who are abused in churches, it's really shocking. And they know that it wasn't right, and then they didn't consent. But also, when you've got a position of power, consent goes out the window anyway. Even for us, like if someone abuses that position of power, it does happen. I hope that was clear, and if you agree or disagree, it's really okay as well. We do what is right for our kids, I think, and we try our best. But for me, I want to teach children, if they're in my therapy room even, about manipulation, about the words that people use. Years ago, I had a woman come to me, I was working on Harley Street, and this woman walked in with an eating disorder. She binge ate, and she was at least a size 24, she was really struggling with her weight. And we started to talk, and she said, well, I'm going to tell you quite a traumatic story. Now, as soon as someone says that, I'm like, hang on. People tend to blurt. Are you ready for that? That could damage you more. Where are you with that? And eventually, over time, we got to the story of her dad would rape her sister most nights in the bunk bed beneath her. And you can assume that she was coming because the trauma of that. Do you know what her problem was? She said, why didn't he choose me? Because when he was doing it, he told the child how special she was, how magic she was, how beautiful she was. And it was their special secret, and he hadn't picked anyone else. That's the fucking manipulation. So much so that this child listened to it, never told anyone for years. Neither of them did. It just gives me goosebumps when I think about it. It still impacts me. Why didn't he pick me? I'm not beautiful, so I'm just going to put on weight to show to the world that I'm not beautiful. It's fucking horrific. And that's everyday stuff, I'll tell you. Someone we know. That's 4 or 5%. It's interesting, but we teach our kids to be frightened of a man in a van. Right, okay. And that does happen. If you look at what happened with Sarah's Law and Sarah's Law, I know her. I physically know her, and I knew her partner after it happened as well. It's just a random stranger in a van. But that's the stuff that hits the papers more. That's one of the problems that we have. Yeah, it's very sensational, isn't it? Gosh, random thing happened. Whereas if your uncle did it, it's like, well, that's standard, it's not going to go in the newspaper. Anyway, off track a little bit but still teaching consent. Thank you very much for your time. Sorry it's really hot in here. Thank you.